Howdy, partners. It's the Time Enough podcast where we talk about episodes of The Twilight Zone and beyond. But it's not it's kind of beyond, but not in a like beyond the Twilight Zone sort of way because it's an
No,
episode of the Twilight Zone.
today we'll be discussing an episode of the show Beyond.
One step beyond. I'm not prepared. No, there is a show called Hi, this is Matt. This is Mark trying to confuse you all with
I'm
misinformation
Lord
about
of Misdirection.
anthology shows.
Yes. Imagine finding misdirection in a Twilight Zone podcast.
It's Elegy,
Hmm.
Elegy, Elegy, Elegy.
Elegy. That would be, I believe that means a poem to commemorate the dead or something.
It's something I got this book of cello music, and two of them are called elegies. So they're all depressing and stuff.
Yeah, probably for some dead astronauts. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you're listening to this, you know
you know about
show
the
is. You've seen it.
They're alive through most of the show.
I mean,
but what kind of life is it?
But they're doomed, so in a way they are already dead.
We're all doomed. We're all dying from now.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not dying because a hologram is going to poison me on an asteroid.
Right. Speaking of that hologram and our astronauts, I'll do the trivia part of this show. This episode was written by Charles Beaumont, and this trippy on the surface but dark underneath is pretty much his signature style on the show. As for our astronauts, the dark-haired one is Jeff Morrow. His acting career didn't catch fire until he was in his late 40s when he set some fire to the robe. For the sci-fi fan, he showed up in This Island Earth, but for the anthology fan, look towards his 6 appearances on Crossroads, not Beyond. This is his only trip into the Twilight Zone, except for that time he appeared in the 80s reboot episode A Day in Beaumont. I wonder if there's a reference there. Crewmate Kevin Hagen made plenty of TV guest appearances, but is best remembered playing Doc Baker in Little House on the Prairie, which I didn't watch.
Me neither.
No, I mean, in the 80s, like boys didn't watch Little House on the Prairie. I think. I mean, I'm sure there's someone who did. So email us if you're that person you want to do the Prairie cast.
You boys watch Knight Rider and girls watch Little House on the Prairie. That never the twain shall meet.
That sounds right. Don Dubbins was crewmate number 3. He got plenty of work on TV, but nothing that really caught my attention. His wiki shot was from Bonanza, so I guess there's that. Jeremy Wickwire was played by Cecil Kellaway, who had some notable acting chops. He very much took the role of a character actor from the 1930s, but the approach got him some Best Supporting Actor noms for The Luck of the Irish and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. That's it. That's all I had for trivia. I didn't see you put the astronauts' names in your notes where I never even bothered to think about them.
Do you know why I put them there?
Because Kirby's there?
So I could look at them and see what their names are.
Good thinking there. So you'll be the guy in charge of doing the names.
I don't know which one's which.
Right. Kirby's the pink one.
Okay. Yeah. Kirby ate a car.
Right.
And
but what your job is to do this prologue, which you can now see.
Okay. Here we go. The time is the day after tomorrow. Okay, I got to start over. The time is the day after tomorrow. The place, a far corner of the universe. A cast of characters. 3 men lost amongst the stars. 3 men sharing the common urgency of all men lost. They're looking for home. And in a moment they'll find home. Not a home that is a place to be seen, but a strange, unexplainable experience to be felt.
Right. I was wondering if you're going to try doing the whole thing with voice number 1.
I just switched between 3 voices because it's scary.
I have my giant Cookie Monster puppet, which I use in classes, and then if I find myself having to do the Cookie Monster voice for 5 minutes, that's bad news time, right?
Maybe I should do the Cookie Monster voice for the next Twilight Zone episode. I'll just pick one at some point.
Right. Maybe the one that's about cookies, the cookie episode of the Twilight zone.
You
It
know,
could
you
be.
could be lying, but you could be telling the truth.
I know that's the amazing thing about it. One recurring theme, 655 million miles isn't like that far.
No, I feel like Neil deGrasse Tyson is like just somewhere, just in a room, just kind of itching, wanting to tweet about it, but he knows that most people haven't seen this episode recently.
Maybe I should. Have you seen the Key and Peele sketch, which shows Neil deGrasse Tyson's married life?
No.
Like she accuses him of like cheating on her and stuff. He'll just go into, but think about it this way. There are a million, and then goes into some physics lecture about how it's okay that he's cheating.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I mean, speaking of people who kind of sound like the Cookie Monster.
yeah. Well, he's just got a gravelly. He's got some gravel, right?
I mean, more like Yoda, but I don't know.
I mean, Stevie Wonder can sound like the Cookie Monster when he wants to.
It's true.
He
When
does
that
one
guy
of the
goes
best
to jail,
impressions.
when that guy
Yeah,
goes to jail and living for the city.
that's right. He goes full Cookie Monster.
Mhm.
John Lennon's got a cookie in one of the songs on his first album that it's like a ballad, and there's just a sudden cookie. And yeah, why are we? This is the Cookie
Oh, Tom
Monster
Waits.
podcast.
Tom Waits is always the Cookie Monster.
Oh yeah, yeah, he does a good Cookie Monster. No, I don't think anyone in here did. What we get here is the Captain Wacky music, right? Like twice.
Yeah.
Like I noticed on my disc, this one did have an isolated score, and I'm like, really?
That's
For
weird.
that? Is it for that? Is that why it's there?
Mm.
Because it was. I mean, I would have put a more menacing sting with him. I think.
I mean,
This being
think about
Jeremy
it.
Wickwire's reveal.
Isn't there an isolated band that isn't even alive? How more isolated can you get than that? I'm just trying to draw tangents. I can't.
Oh
Anyway.
yeah, I definitely like the creepy canned music, which does that is a weird wrench too, because at that point, like you were making notes about like, oh well, how does the bell ring if time has stopped? But time didn't stop, so they can
Mhm.
have loudspeakers playing band music. So
Yeah, it was. It felt like I hate to say it, but it felt obvious that there wasn't a super great twist coming because things weren't adding up in a way that felt like they were adding up at all. And
well,
I
they
was I
kind of
was
add
kind of
up in
right
the
on that.
end. Oh, they
I
kind
mean,
of
they
add
do
up in
add
the
up.
end.
You know what's happening at the end, but what's just happening is like you're screwed.
Yeah, I guess how did this episode land with you? I've heard this one as being mentioned as one of the first truly bad episode, but to be honest, I was perfectly amused by it. So
I I had fun.
yeah,
I didn't think it was great, but I'm a fan of the dark. I'm a
yeah,
fan of the dark.
and I
And
did like the twist is like something horrible like that's coming, but you definitely can't anticipate quite the flavor of it.
I mean, I it's probably I feel kind of guilty admitting this, but a lot of the fun I had with this episode was just staring at all the extras and like
Like slightly
waiting for them
moving.
to blink. Yeah. Yeah, that was the whole thing. I saw a guy blink. I was like, I rewound it a couple times just to like watch people flinch. It was really fun.
No, that was totally fun. Like maybe I'm an idiot because I didn't notice it until it was the beauty pageant, but I had to do my note taking session twice because my computer crashed and erased my first version of my notes. So I was
No.
definitely noticing like way earlier on the next time I watched it that a bunch of people like couldn't keep it still.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where I'm always trying to like see through the production stuff, and then it's like, well, they don't have. You might have gotten a wax figure for a couple of people, but when it goes into a room and there's like 35 people, I'm like, oh yeah, these are just people standing really still, and that makes it really fun. Because if they did it now, they would just use like the bullet time cameras, and it would just or just CGI people. It would be super easy for them to do this. Like I could do this in my house probably.
Oh, here's one detail that definitely did not make sense, even when it wraps up in the end. The clock doesn't have hands. That was an error. The clock should have had hands, even if it wasn't moving.
Wait, you mean definitely was an error on the production, or do you just think
No,
that?
it's in the script. No, I'm saying the people who set up the cemetery, the space asteroid cemetery, like forgot to put hands on the clock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a production flaw of this sci-fi funerary team.
I thought it was just a red herring, which probably was, but mm.
I like
I
to think it
didn't.
was an
It
error.
felt like a red. It felt like a red herring. Yeah, maybe it was an
I mean,
error.
there's dialogue about it. Clearly, was not a production mistake.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh,
um,
but
you liked this rocket, did you?
I liked it.
Okay,
It was cute.
I thought it was a dollar store rocket with Rei Kawakubo spacesuits. I just read about her. Do you know who that is? And if you
No,
say it's fine if you don't. I was reading one of John Waters' books where he's talking about like he likes to buy all his clothes from a really expensive fashion designer that makes your stuff look like thrift store stuff. You know, like I'm visiting my parents, so I decide to wear the sport coat that looks perfectly fine on the outside, but is lined with like rat fur on the inside.
wow.
Or like it'll just have like a random green um button like halfway down the jacket or the shirt or whatever. Anyway, the spacesuits like had that really like weird patches and weird places, and then their collar didn't make any sense whatsoever.
Jeez, I didn't really notice the spacesuits. I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention.
I
I
think it's because I just read about the designer, so I was like, oh, she would love these spacesuits.
I I think it's maybe because this is the second or possibly third Twilight Zone episode that I've commented on that has space travel in it. I was just sort of like, oh, they're in space.
Spacey Mark. Okay,
I was
that is
more focused on trying to figure out what the planet was.
when Judgment Night. That was a sea ship, not a spaceship.
Oh yeah. Well, anyway,
I was just trying to
um,
confuse you. That's all.
well, my thought was I'm for one thing I'm pretty certain I've never seen this episode before. Not that you asked, but I was trying to solve the thing in my head, and I thought, oh well, they went backwards in time into Earth.
I think I
That was what
mentioned.
they wanted you to think.
I know I mentioned it on the podcast, not directly to you, but I tend to put on these anthology shows late at night and then fall asleep. So this one, I think the first time I like crashed 5 minutes in, like after they crashed, right? Like
Yeah,
they got out of the rocket and then I fell asleep. And then I watched it, I got through like 20 minutes. So then I fell asleep like right before the actual twist. So
and you
and then
dreamed about frozen dogs.
yeah, and then I watched it twice for notes this time around. So but
Okay.
that was again because of computer issues. But I did not like hate watching again. Actually, it's kind of a fun one to watch again because you pick up on the little things that they aren't little things to level you'd find in like a modern movie where they have like a 500-person production team putting these touches in, but
Yeah, I would be hard pressed to name it to specifically think of a Twilight Zone episode that I thought was bad or
the one with the laugh track,
oh, which one?
it
Oh,
it's
okay.
coming eventually. But anyway, there's
Okay.
one with the laugh track that's particularly crap, if I remember correctly. Who knows? I might get to it and love it. We'll see, but I have my doubts.
I feel like generally the worst I ever get out of these episodes is that it's predictable or rote or feels like someone is going, haha, you're an idiot. Yeah.
I well again, that's why we do need to point out it's a Charles Beaumont script because that is a little more his vibe.
I'm well the weirdest thing for me was that I kept thinking until like very close to the end, I'm like, oh, they ended up in the future because it's this insane technology where an asteroid could just have a bunch of frozen people on it. And then it was just, this is started in 1973. And I was like,
I
wait, what? What?
I just kept
What?
thinking of the red dwarf where they end up back on Earth and time is now running backwards.
When they go to Nod Null,
Yeah,
like
that
London
must be it.
spelled backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
um,
great. That was a great episode.
I wasn't quite I mean you didn't interrupt me. I was just saying I'm not quite finished with the rocket.
Mm.
One, the console in the rocket, it looked like the alien one from Forbidden Planet. I wondered if they had nicked that piece of the set.
I wouldn't be surprised. This is really close to when that was made, right?
And
I mean,
I think they even nicked other things from Forbidden Planet. So I really do think that was the console from Forbidden Planet. The one that shows is it the Krill in Forbidden Planet? I've been watching the Orville where the Krill are one of the races, and now I can't remember who it's supposed to be in that movie. Something like that.
don't think it was the krill. I feel like I would remember that because that's like fish or something, right?
Yeah. Anyway, it's Forbidden Planet. You don't really have to say more than that. People will work out the rest. Also, I put that airlocks are for wusses.
Yeah, they're just like, well, I'm thinking to myself, well, either you're wrong about the air or you're wrong about where you are. Because, like, uh, maybe a little bit of a pet peeve. It didn't bother me here because it's Twilight Zone, and of course it's going to do this. But I feel like Star Trek Voyager does this a lot, where they're just super far out in space, and there's all of a sudden there's Earth centric stuff.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, he does
seriously?
he does make the point that we're not going anywhere else.
Yeah, of course.
I
It's
guess
just
and
I mean, it
again,
makes sense. It makes sense when you find out what the whole deal is, but it's just sort of like when you have a bunch of coincidentally you go somewhere and there's Earth stuff there, and you go to another planet and there's Earth stuff there, and then
I mean this what 655 million miles puts them out like what like somewhere past Saturn or something
yeah, I think so.
roughly. I mean, so it's they're done.
I didn't measure it.
They've been lost for 6 months, but I guess they've been like like the Expanse lost, right? Where they're just like orbiting the solar system in a eccentric orbit or something.
Well, I believe the I believe some of the opening narration was in a corner of the universe,
No, I
which
know. I'm
is
going
the
by the number they actually gave us, and have come to
yeah.
a conclusion that these guys were just like, you know, blopping around the solar system out of control or something.
I don't think they would have just tossed that number out like Ridley Scott or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
No, in this show they just like to think of a number and use it. So I get that. It's just yeah,
Yeah.
I like calling it out. That's all.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's fun to call out. Um, what are some other things here? Oh yeah, they make the horror movie, fatal flaw of let's split up for an hour, but it works out fine for them. So that's cool.
I Interestingly, I rewound and rewatched that little part about 3 or 4 times because I'm like, did I miss the part where they talked about why they were splitting up? And they really didn't.
They'll
I was
cover more
like,
ground that way.
I think I just like couldn't figure out why. I think it was just um we have to find. They were like, we have to find something. It
Yeah.
was just
Now,
uh,
we should start talking a little bit about Jeremy Wickwire, who you said you kept writing hologram, where I wrote android. I just thought that was interesting, where we came land because he carries things,
I
right? He serves them food, and that kills them.
well, I mean, the holodeck is on Star Trek. I know this way predates that concept, but those things could carry stuff.
Yeah, I just kind of assumed that they actually did build all this.
Yeah, probably. I don't feel like they explain that a whole
Maybe
lot, but
maybe because we've already seen the Visitor, where it's shown that you can just live on an asteroid, even if it is boring.
yeah, it's true. I mean, I just once my brain switched into this is a holodeck, then it was hard to go back from that. To be honest,
Okay,
I think because I've seen so many holodeck and hologram related Star Trek episodes at this point.
because once Wickwire starts explaining that this cemetery has lots of different themed areas, which we see none of course, because they didn't have the budget for
Yeah.
that. But I started getting images of Legoland in the Lego movie.
I was really fantasizing about like we're gonna watch these astronauts retire to like all these different worlds, and it's just like no,
No,
nope.
no, yeah. I mean, this is a it is fun. You get one sci-fi set, right? Otherwise, you get to use what like just the normal backlot sets, and it still feels relatively sci-fi, I guess. I mean,
Yeah,
Star Trek pulled the same, especially TOS pulled the same trick, and that's why Voyager also kept finding planet Earth out in the Delta Quadrant.
yeah, of course. It was Voyager's maybe a little too ambitious for what the budget for sci-fi shows always was at that point.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know if Discovery has less of that, but
I like the really bleak Voyager episodes, like the one where the ship disintegrates at the end and they all die.
yeah, I love I love ones where they're like, oh well, the ship is just slowly going to melt until we barely fix it, or like everyone, what was it? Everyone went insane.
Like
I don't
eight
remember.
times. Yeah, it
Yeah, I
was
can
this.
barely remember.
Well, Star Trek always has everybody goes insane, right? I mean, well, So it's the Twilight Zone, which usually one person goes insane in the Twilight Zone, where it's everyone goes insane because of a singularity, right?
Yeah, and Deep Space Nine got a lot of mileage out of like one character is alone on Deep Space Nine for some reason.
That's because
Usually
they had
Doctor
such a big,
Bashir.
again, it's the sets. They had such a big
Yeah,
set for it. They'd never had that big a set for Trek before. So throwing one dude on there or lady is quite effective.
yeah. So a bottle episode is like you get a lot more out of it.
So is this a bottle episode for the Twilight Zone? Is there such thing as a bottle episode for the Twilight Zone? Because there's definitely somewhere they would build more notable sets or have more notable makeup, things like that. Where this
I
one,
mean,
the
if
main
it's
effect
not
is
Earth,
Sanrio still,
if it's not Earth, is it always a bottle episode when it's not Earth
but
and they don't go to another planet?
it's still Earth. Yeah. um.
It's an asteroid episode.
Yeah. As far as the twist, yeah, like the fact that they're just like, yeah, little old man, give me that tea is pretty. You'd think you'd have just a little bit of discernment. I guess they have to eat eventually, and they're there for good. So why not start now? But
The way I look at it is that Jeremy Wickwire is such an intelligent android or program or whatever that he knew that if he just let them kind of run around until they were so disoriented that they would just sort of eat out of his hand or drink out of his hand, literally.
yeah,
I mean, I doubt that's what the writers had in mind, but it works for me. I mean, I get it. I can get they're just like, oh God, and then they have you. Then he has you. You're
you
dead.
know who it makes me think of? One of the crappiest looking robots ever, which is Box from Logan's Run. He's
Oh
kind of doing
yes,
this.
when he's trying to give them fish and greens and protein from the sea.
Yeah, 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 and then wants to laser them, right?
Yeah,
At least he got Jenny. What is it, Algatur naked for a bit? That was cool, but
I think I believe that was only in the movie and not in the book, but I don't know
well,
for
the
sure.
book, I read the book. It's
The book's nothing.
completely different, and I think that like really, really like horrible stuff happens to them in the book, like grievous injuries that are fortunately fixed by the future tech. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
actually,
the book is so different. Spoilers for Logan's Run, the book. I guess skip ahead if you haven't read it. Is that I found out that the whole thing was that Sanctuary is real and it's in space, and the guy who was hunting them actually was part of the resistance and helped them escape. So that's just like
yeah,
couldn't be more different. I
something
mean,
like that. It's not a long book. I read it when I did the podcast for Logan's Run, and mostly it's my memory is back to the movie. So
yeah. Well, it's like the movie is such a formative. I mean, for I don't know about for most people, but I think people our age watched that at some point and they got an impression out of it. I mean,
yeah.
uh, the
And then another box like thing he says, just while there are men, there can be no peace. That's when he just goes super dark at the end, of course.
yeah,
That's
this
his.
is a lot like Logan's Run, where it's sort of like you can't trust people, so we have to do something about them. That's like sort of I don't know if that's I don't know if that counts as fascism. It's just generally kind of scary.
um let's roll on into the questions, like who went into the Twilight Zone. Is that an easy one for this episode?
Pretty easy, yeah.
It's three astronauts.
The band members, yeah, the three astronauts.
Yeah. No, the band. Yeah. Well, okay, what about maybe 1 out of 10 of these people are actual people, right? He notes that most of them are replications, and
Yeah.
just it's just the people, of course, the customers, I guess you could say.
I, yeah, I wasn't clear on. He was talking about how they could continue living out their dreams after they're dead, and I was unclear on what that meant.
Because like the beauty queen is relatively dumpy looking, right? That was the real person
Yeah.
who died, and all of the other contestants and people watching are simply the not real people. And then
Yeah, but
the
it's
beauty
like if
queen's
you're dead,
the embalmed
if you're,
one.
yeah, if you're dead, then you're not alive. It's just a little bit of a question for me was like, is there some tech keeping these people alive somehow
No, they're all dead.
after they're
That's the point.
dead?
No, they're all dead. It's just, I mean, think about, like he says, it's a cemetery, right? Some people
Hmm.
build like giant sculptures for these dead people, mortuaries, things like that. I mean, they're not really enjoying them because they're dead, right?
It's like when you stuff your cat.
Yeah.
It's like
Uh,
if you stuffed your cat and then put your cat on a planet with other stuffed cats.
you
I
know,
mean,
I'm not,
some of the
I'm
cats are robots.
I think I'm completely not into the pyramids or a tomb idea, but if you were to call the pyramids a tomb, then then that would be another example.
Well, of course, they're full of grain. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, they're full of like subtle energy blasting into space to other planets, man.
They're full
I
of
hope.
cats.
Yeah, they're full of
They're full.
cats.
They're full of Scrooge McDuck's gold.
Probably. There's a there they did find they found another chamber recently, so that's probably where all the gold is.
That's where the weed is, man.
Yeah. The blue lotus because it's Egypt.
Yeah.
Well, you know what man, what a discovery that would be if they went in there and found a bunch of ganj though. What would that mean for history?
It would be very dry.
Yeah, but I
Uh,
mean, I like they found like in some mummies, I think they found traces of tobacco, which doesn't make sense because tobacco theoretically wouldn't have been in ancient Egypt.
well, I mean, if it existed anywhere, they probably could have gotten it. I don't know. I have
Anyway,
no idea.
that I'm just getting into the whole like maybe civilizations aren't what we think they were.
I'm much more interested in stuff like they found a computer that was like
There's
from I
that
think
Greek computer, right? That's what you're talking about.
yeah
The one
yeah
undersea.
where it's like a little computer that
Yeah,
could
I
just
mean,
do math.
it's an analog computer, but it's still pretty
Yeah,
impressive. Hell, it's more impressive. You have to put all those gears together.
yeah, of course. I mean, you know that's what you
So
want to believe is like you, or at least some of us want to believe that there was a super cool, super advanced civilization that just got wiped out at some point and we'll
yeah, did
never
these
check.
did these astronauts deserve their trip into the Twilight Zone?
It's hard to tell, but I'm gonna say no.
Okay, go ahead and explain. That's I guess the point of the question.
They seem pretty innocent. I don't understand. I don't think it was entirely clear what they were doing in space, but I don't think they were
Oh, they actually
going
said
out.
they're on a standard geological survey or something.
Oh, so it just went over my head because I was like, that's boring. I don't care about your stupid geology. Anyway, no, they don't deserve it just because they were doing rock stuff.
Okay, yeah, yeah, they weren't off to war or anything like that. Or, they weren't
No.
like they weren't going to go fight some drac or anything like that. So,
No, I mean if there's any like actual flaw in this episode is that I didn't they weren't they were sort of just not characters.
well, I couldn't tell the two blonde dudes apart, right? Like you said, you wrote down the names so you could remember the names, but
Yeah, if there had been one of them that was like, no, we've gotta get out of here. We gotta kill all these frozen people. I don't know if there was any conflict between them, then I would feel differently. But I guess that they just didn't really feel like that it needed it, or they didn't feel like there was space for it, or
so they follow the Gene Roddenberry edict of no conflict among the crew, I guess. Actually, they do because they don't. I mean, they barely argue. The biggest argument is, "Are you sure you should open the door?" Well, what else are we going to do? So they open the door. That's the most conflict they have, right? So
yeah.
I
I
guess they're
mean
kind of
that's probably
chill
well, that's a
space cats
more
that got embalmed while
that's a
still
more
alive.
realistic working environment, right? I mean, if you're trapped with two other guys in a little rocket ship, you most likely don't want to constantly have arguments with them. I think that's pretty realistic.
I wonder what kind of arguments went on in the Apollo capsule,
Be
especially
like,
13 when the mic was off.
just why is this pea sphere floating towards me?
Well, there's one of the last Apollo, maybe the last. There was a dude like doing ESP experiments on the way back, so that's kind of cool.
That's why it was the last one. He tapped into something, tapped into the wrong stuff, man. Wasn't that
No, that's because the Transformers on the moon told us not to come back.
wasn't that the X-Men the Phoenix Saga? The original thing was they were like going back in the space shuttle, and then it was like they were messing up, and she just turned into a giant bird because
Okay, sorry,
something.
I'm too dork here. They were on a space station that encountered a solar flare, and they had to get out because of the radiation. So they all holed up in the back of the space shuttle, which was lead lined or something, while Jean Grey piloted the ship using her telekinesis to block out the radiation until she couldn't anymore.
No, see, that's not dorky at all. You were clarifying what I was barely recollecting. So
It's
good job.
dorky because like it didn't take me any mental effort to recall that story at all.
Well, it you could fit the entire plot of every movie about the Phoenix within that sentence.
Yeah. And
She's
then there's
angry.
and then 10 years after the original, when they reprinted them, they added in this 10-page story where she like, and as she's like losing her hair and rotting, she encounters this phoenix spirit that, that's kind of trippy. But that was retconning because by that point Jean Grey had like come back, right? So
Right, because the
yeah.
Dark Phoenix thing was separate from the regular Phoenix thing.
Right. Yeah. So that's trippy. That's a 5 on the tripometer, right?
The Phoenix Saga, yes, absolutely.
How about Elegy? Where does that land on the tripometer for you?
I'm gonna give it a 1.9.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's basically a 2.
yeah, almost.
Mm.
Not quite. Not very trippy. I mean, there's people being still is cool, but you get used to it.
So yeah, I was going to go up to 3 because
Hmm.
I'm the one that was not thinking holograms, but I was thinking, I guess, holodeck episode, right?
Yeah,
So
it,
you
it's
throw
it's
you throw a
unfair
rocket.
for it's unfair for me to judge this because I feel like I've seen it so many other times with.
Well, the whole point of the tripometer is you're not judging it, right? You're just tripping it. So
Mhm. Yeah, I'm sticking with my 1.9. I think it's
no, I'm not
kind
trying
of
to talk you
trippy.
out of it. I'm just,
And
the point is
also,
to
that's not a judgment of how good it is. That's just how trippy it is.
exactly. So I'm saying it's trippier because I guess maybe again, while I was watching this, that Red Dwarf episode kept coming to mind, which is also a straight up 5 on the tripometer, right? So I
Yeah,
think
and it really gets kind of a little bit of a couple of extra decimal points just because the entire thing is just a short march to death, which I think is pretty trippy in itself, right? That's just, that's
a
where the
trot to
DMT
death.
comes in. That's where the DMT kicks in, man. It's like you're never gonna get more DMT than when like a android poisons you.
I talked to a doctor who'll do you that.
I mean, yeah, you can get more DMT than that, but your average your average astronaut who is drug tested by the military
Right. Okay.
probably, yeah.
See, again, we're not talking quality, but this one, I think Elegy, I actually would put the trippy above the quality, which we've had a lot of episodes so far where the quality seemed to be above the trippy. Like, Mr.
Hmm.
Denton on Doomsday is like a Western, that's
That's
not so
classic,
trippy,
yes.
but it's a really,
But
really good, I think it's a really good episode. So,
it's a classic, good, not very trippy episode.
yeah. Whereas here, the tables turn. The episode is like, I guess I found it like pleasantly half-assed, like I enjoyed the half-assedness of this episode.
So, since Mr. Denton came up for just a second, do you think that Mr. Death and Mr. Fate are friends with each other?
Yeah, yeah. I think I mention that when we were talking. I don't know. Yes,
I
I
don't
thought they're
remember.
basically the same character.
Are there more misters coming up in this series?
Oh God, yes.
Okay, cool. Because
I
in
think
my head, I'm building the Mister cinematic universe.
I think it's maybe in about a month or two we're going to get to the episode with Mr. Pip.
Okay, I love his soda.
Yeah, not Pib, Pip. Is Pip a soda?
Oh,
Okay, Mr. Pip.
probably.
He
I
he
mean,
is
there
he is fat.
might be a Japanese pip.
I jumped ahead and watched it. Mr. Pip is relatively chubby. Yeah. Actually,
Mm.
yeah, the other guy in the episode keeps calling him fatso even. So
Ah, that's not nice.
yeah. But yes, the android, the hologram here isn't he's polite, but he's not nice, I guess.
He's cordial.
Yeah. I mean, he's also programmed, so whatever.
He did a great job. I'm just gonna say whoever programmed Jeremy Wickwire did a great job.
I guess Cecil, the actor, programmed Jeremy Whitwire, and that's why he got 2 Oscar nominations.
Oh yeah.
No, again, it's a good actor, so that helps. Um, I'm trying to think about time. I don't know when are we talking
Well,
to people? I'm looking at my list of when people are hearing us talk to them now. It's like the middle of April. You got anything
hey,
cooking?
get some April showers and get ready for Mayflowers,
Mm.
cause it's springtime. Go get you a lavender latte. I don't got anything going on in spring, probably.
I think I'm probably when this episode's releasing, chilling at the cherry blossoms with a chew high. Yeah,
Nice.
and if there's like people aren't getting together. I know places with great cherry blossoms and no people. We veered away even before COVID. We kind of veered away from going to the big cherry blossom festivals to just hiking out to a spot by the river with a bunch of cherry blossom trees. So screw
I'm
people.
yeah, screw people. I'm in the United States, so I'm currently trying to plan a vacation, and I'm like, where can I trust to go, and where will I be allowed to go?
Scranton, Pennsylvania.
I'm pretty sure what I'm just going to do is just sit in my home and play video games. I just feel like that's what I'm going to order super expensive food to my home and then just sit here,
And stare at it.
stare at the food, and then
um,
not eat it because I'm afraid that Android poisoned me.
yeah, that's what I was getting at. As for this, it's Time Enough podcast. It is we're on Twitter as Time Enough Pod. We're on Facebook. Sorry, I forgot what I was doing there for a second. This podcast and other podcastios are on Patreon under the umbrella of Podcastius, where we also talk about sci-fi movies on Matt and Luke's Sci-Fi Sanctuary. Whatever weird stuff I feel like watching at Oral Hygiene. And you'll hear some podcasts on Pokemon and Monster Hunter. And now there's some video game quiz showing, apparently. So there's all, yeah. I think you've already been invited, but not like directly.
Yes.
So,
all right.
And I just called you out on air if that's the case. So,
Well, if you're wrong, then I'm disappointed.
yes, then I deserve my trip into the Twilight Zone.